Everybody's talking about R. Kelly again. It's the same old shit. I had to watch the special because I was told it was funny. I was telling people were begging me, please watch this, to sit there and laugh. And when you watch it, you can see why some people would laugh at it because it's just presented in this way, so over the top and dramatic with the music and the drama. First of all, when you put it on the R. Kelly, Surviving R. Kelly on the Lifetime channel, they have these special little messages, these little special please don't sue us messages. R. Kelly has denied all these allegations, which clearly means almost none of this is true. All the ladies sound rehearsed. They're speaking unnaturally. I worked up the courage to come forward with my story. And then I found out that R. Kelly was going after all these other girls. And I was very upset. And then I was in distress. And they were overinflating R. Kelly. It's just a bunch of women who were being self-serving in their explanations and their interviews. Because something terrible happened to them at an age where they shouldn't have been. They shouldn't have had access to R. Kelly. They shouldn't have been so obsessed with R. Kelly. But they were. Whose fault is that? That's R. Kelly's fault? Now, what he did to them is his fault. But is it his fault that they loved him? Is it his fault that they were so into him that they were willing to agree to the things that he was proposing? To some degree, of course, it's his fault. He pissed on underage girls and had sex with them. Now, first off, I'm going to say, I don't want anyone to listen to this and get the impression that I'm taking up for R. Kelly. I don't want this to sound like the RK's got to stick together. Here's my first point about R. Kelly and why what he did was wrong. The girls were not 18 years old. He's going after girls who are ridiculously underage. The worst part about it is there are women who are adults in his life who seem to know about all of this and they don't give a fuck. And yet somehow they're all black women. But it's everyone else's fault that black women are not revered as victims, supposedly, if you believe this series. Because they go on and on about how it's black girls and black women. No one believes it because some fucking cunt like Chance the Rapper comes out and says, I didn't believe his victims because they were black women. Well, guess what, son? That means that you're fucking racist against black people, not everyone else, you dumb fuck. You value black women so little. And is there any group of people on earth who value black women as little as black men do? Chance the Rapper admitting it out and out that he doesn't give a fuck what black girls say. And I work with R. Kelly because I didn't believe them because they were black women. And I'm sorry. Well, guess what? Too little, too late, Chance. What kind of a name is Chance for a fucking rapper? I might not even be using the right rapper's name. I hope that that's the right guy that I'm talking about. But this whole show is just an airing of grievances from women who should have known better. The adults, anyway. Like I said, my one and only point against R. Kelly, I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. The girls' ages. That's the only thing really here that you can say is worth making a show about and bringing someone up on charges. Aside from that, he hits a girl. Okay, you're in a situation where a girl's calling a guy daddy and getting slapped. Do you think that the police are going to be called for that? When a girl lives with him and she chooses to live there, she can get up and leave whenever she wants. And multiple times in the series, they go, well, R. Kelly told me not to get up and leave, so I couldn't get up and leave. And I have to do whatever R. Kelly says because, you know, he's R. Kelly and I'm such a big fan. And to a certain point, it's your fault when you're such a big fan of someone that you let it control your every action. The self-indulgence of the women going on and on. They even, in a way, in some kind of a sick way, they build up R. Kelly even and compliment him so much because they see him as their abuser. So they just say to themselves, well, in order to make myself feel important, I have to be abused by a very important person. So they're inflating the worth of R. Kelly. They go, these bitches go, he was the biggest in the industry. R. Kelly? R. Kelly, biggest in the industry. I don't even think in 2001 that was true. I don't think at any point in the 90s that was true. Michael Jackson was alive. Who was bigger in the 90s than R. Kelly? I can list probably, even in R&B, there were people bigger than R. Kelly. And then they go, he was a hero. No, he wasn't. He had 2 songs. What songs? And what were they? The 2 songs that they played in the show. Other than that, they play they played 3 songs. One of them I didn't even recognize. It's because it's from the early 90s. The R. Kelly that no one likes. No one listens to old R. Kelly unless you're a fucking nerd. Unless you're a nostalgic 90s nerd who likes shitty music from the 90s because it's nostalgic. Hey, listen, I like a lot of shitty music from the 90s because of nostalgic purposes. But I'm not going to delude myself into listening to R. Kelly and telling myself that that new age R&B shit was any good at all, because it wasn't. It was trash. It was a disgrace to rhythm and blues, the fact that that light hip-hop shit from the 90s could be considered R&B. It destroys and tarnishes the name of an entire genre that came before it. So the whole show, edited by Lifetime Productions, in some ways it's even made to sound like girls who were 18 and 19 are underage, the way that they phrase it. This girl was 18 when she met R. Kelly. They show it and it goes, this girl was 14 when she met R. Kelly. And it's impactful when it says 14. At the end of the series, it starts going, this girl was 19. And at that point, you're like, oh, shut the fuck up. Get out of my face. I don't want to hear it. You were a fucking adult for over a year at that point. And you were so ugly. His ex-wife, whatever her name is, that still keeps his fucking last name and can't wait to talk about him all day long, and how he should have paid child support and how she didn't have to get a job, how it's not her responsibility to really take care of her kids, but she needs him to pay for all of it, even though he can't see his kids or he can't, fucking raise his kids because she has custody. But she's going to get custody, but she can't pay for them. He has to pay for them. Somehow she gets the custody even though she can't really provide for them. Fucking ugly fish face ex-wife lady. And then I think there was one lady, I don't know if it was his mother or whatever the fuck, or maybe it was one of his mother-in-laws or something. Your sins will find you out. Trying to be all dark and mysterious like she's a Disney. She's the grandmother of the main character in a Disney movie, like giving some kind of a wise advice. Yeah, throughout the series of the show, they say his performances and his music videos were pornographic. R. Kelly and his performances were pornographic. But if you really watch it, it's nothing compared to the kind of shit that you have nowadays. And nowadays, you even have guys like Drake openly and admittingly texting underage girls and actresses. And no one cares. They think it's all so innocent. It's suddenly a big problem years later. It wasn't a problem then with Aaliyah. No one cared. It wasn't an issue, but now it's an issue. And it's not an issue now with Drake. It's not an issue. It's going to be, in a few years, it'll be an issue. Once the girls are already raped and fucked and impregnated or paid off, or they become they become driven insane by this shit, then they can come out. Then everyone can come out and talk about what happened and what Drake did and what R. Kelly did. But until then, let them get away with it for a few years. That's how it is. Yeah, they get interviews with everybody in this show. They get interviews with the guy from jail that's his brother. R. Kelly's brother is in jail. It's kind of humiliating that they make him wear a shirt that says 3XL right in front of the world. He's sitting in the lunchroom of whatever jail that he's making his residence in nowadays. And he's talking about R. Kelly when he was younger. He's basically calling him a pussy-ass boy. And then he goes, if you stared at him in his face, he would start crying. Which is a pretty interesting and telling thing about his psychopathic brother who is in jail now, in the jail lunchroom. I wonder why. Staring at people until they start crying. They even have interviews with psychologists and like music critics who were almost apologizing for him in a way. It has started to make me think that it's almost like they're normalizing. It's something terrible, but introducing the concept to you like it's a possibility. Like, this is what some people want. Look at this. Check this out. Try this one out for size. She was almost making R. Kelly a sympathetic rape victim. This psychologist that was going on and on about it. The dangerous part of making drama shows about real life. Because this is a drama show. I don't consider this real life. This is a show of a bunch of women who are airing their grievances about R. Kelly. And then, they have, I don't remember if they had reenactments or not, but they were like this masterful video editing and graphics and text with dramatic music. This is a show. Here's what you have to remind yourself, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing or what you're hearing. You have to remind yourself, if it's on a screen and you're hearing music and seeing text and all that, you have to remember, somebody sat there and put this together. This is a show. This is fake. In essence, it's fake. If it's on a screen, it's synthetic. It's a rendering of an image. Somebody had to create that. because they wanted to put some image in your head or some concept or some idea. They wanted to promote something, or they wanted to give you some kind of an entertainment, some kind of a form of entertainment. This R. Kelly show, to me, it's fictional, loosely based on reality, because I don't trust any of these broads. First of all, I find their complaints, some of them, to be absurd, that you would sit there on a show about R. Kelly, who is a suspected pedophile, and a guy who supposedly peed on an underage girl and made child pornography. And you're sitting there complaining about the fact he dared to tell you that you suck at making pancakes and you don't know how to make the crispy edges. You fucking cunt. You dare to sit there. I would love to talk to this fish-faced bitch that fucking sat on that show and dared to say, oh, well, he yelled at me because I didn't know how to make the crispy edges. Or his wife, who is sitting there like an asshole, not even getting how much of an asshole she sounds like when she's bitching about R. Kelly. You need to stand up and take care of your responsibilities. You need to take care of your responsibilities. Screaming about how he's not paying child support. Meanwhile, you're the bitch with custody of the kids. You're not getting a job. You're demanding that he pays for everything. Where is your job? Where's your money? Where's your life? You have kids. You're saying that they're your kids and you care about them so much, and yet you don't care about them enough to get a fucking job. What are you doing with yourself all day? Miss Kelly, who still calls herself Kelly years after divorcing R. Kelly. Because he's such an asshole who you love to brag and talk that you were with R. Kelly all day, but then you still fucking talk shit about him. And then her face is front and center whenever it comes back from a commercial in the corny fucking graphic where it shows R. Kelly's face with the sunglasses on. It zooms into his glass, one of the lenses. And then it zooms in and it shows all of his poor little victims. All of his poor whittled victims. And she's front and center somehow. Somehow the bitch that was, I believe she was 18 when they met, the bitch who did really nothing, the bitch who was put through really nothing as far as the other girls were, compared to the other girls, she had a fucking cakewalk. And she had kids with him. And she was married to him. And she got a great life because of it. And then it ended. And guess what? Now she's mad it ended. And now she's mad that she has to get a job. And now she's mad she has his kids. And now she's mad at him. So now she goes on a fucking show and she tries to be the fucking flagship bitch on a show where actual rape victims, who R. Kelly really did rape, statutorily anyway, she's taking up all the fucking spotlight? Fuck you, cunt. You were fucking old enough, bitch, to know better. Those girls were not. The only victims here are if you had a time machine and you could go back in time to when those girls were underage, then you could see the victims. They're not victims anymore. They're adults now. And they have to understand the fact that they were manipulated at a young age by executives in the recording industry, if you want to put it that far up, to think that R. Kelly was their perfect husband. Because R. Kelly made music about all this bullshit about love or whatever the fuck he was singing about, with these covert lyrics where he was kind of writing half about what he really wanted and half about some love bullshit that the girls, they caught on to. And then there's an image of R. Kelly that was bullshit. And just by hearing them talk about how he was a hero, he was the biggest in the industry. No, he wasn't. That's how I know you're wrong. That's how I know you were deluded and how you still are. You actually think R. Kelly was one of the biggest fucking... And then they say he was so wholesome. He was like, no, he wasn't. He wasn't pornographic or wholesome. He was just a fucking R&B singer. I remember R. Kelly, hearing about him all the time. It was always the sickest girls who would be the biggest R. Kelly fans, and you knew it. And I didn't even really know much about what happened. I knew the Chappelle Show thing about the piss, but I didn't know the whole story until I was an adult. But looking back, you just know it was all the sick bitches. Just a little note of something I noticed while watching the show. Of all the people talking, the nameplate consistently said cousin/childhood friend/former security. Just hitting home a point I make about black celebrities often will hire their childhood friends or cousins to be their security guards because for some reason they always want to bring like 1,000 people to every event they go to. The first woman explains perfectly in the series as it unravels. They have the first lady who was the first victim up front. She explains the whole thing. She goes, well, he's famous and I'm young. Essentially saying, I'm shallow, I love famous people because they're famous. I'm a money chaser, and I want to have a good time, and I want to see a bunch of expensive shit, and I want a lot of gifts. And I guess if I have to have sex to do that, I'll do it. She basically admitted that. Now, in the beginning, they're talking about how awful it is, his tactics, inviting girls. And I'm saying to myself, no, it sounds fine to me. If I had all these resources, I would probably be doing the innocuous shit before it starts getting to where he's going to high schools. That's what you call aggressive scouting, and it's a bit much, R. Kelly. So I'm watching the show, and then this Touré pops up, this annoyance that I've been noticing in media for quite a few years. Of course, he pops up to talk about the sexuality of R. Kelly's songs, because if anyone in this series is going to talk about the sexuality of R. Kelly's songs, it's not going to be all the women that he had sex with or, who idolize him. No. It's going to be male hip-hop journalist Touré. And as the show went on, I just found it interesting that they're not doing a show like this about Drake. They're not doing a show like this about all athletes, Instagram models, rappers. This goes on every day. This exact behavior goes on every day, and some of it a lot worse, thanks to Instagram. It's a big vehicle now, Instagram, for this kind of shit. What R. Kelly is doing now will be looked at the way that Elvis shaking his hips is looked at now in the future. R. Kelly will be seen as a tame, sensitive man when you find out about some of the shit that these athletes and rappers are doing. Now, the first girl telling her story, the first red flag she drops in the story is that R. Kelly gave her a hug without her asking for a hug. He just went up to her and hugged her. He doesn't know her. Now, that's the first thing you don't do, R. Kelly. You don't do that. He wants to be found out almost. It's almost like he wants everyone to know. Then it gets to a point where the women are just complaining about how he thinks about himself. It's not even like they don't even want the world to know about what he did wrong. They want the world to know that they don't like R. Kelly and that they think he's pathetic because they have a little grudge against him. And they go, he thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he's the best. Guess what, bitch? That's how you're supposed to think about yourself. You know what? Thinking about yourself as if you're untouchable and as if you're the best, it's a great way to not get wrapped up in a sex cult with a fucking half-rate rapper. How about that? Maybe you shouldn't be so quick to criticize the mindset of somebody who's, first of all, obviously much stronger than you mentally. The fact that he manipulated you so effortlessly to hand your life over to him and submit to him in any way that he wanted. You showed how weak you were and how powerful he was. Thank you for showing me exactly what you really wanted to do. You wanted to break down R. Kelly. You wanted to bring him down. You wanted to wipe the smile off of his face. All they wanted to do was find some guy with a big name and break him down. It makes him feel powerful. It makes you feel like I destroyed that, so I'm as good as that. But it's not the case. Now you're just a bitch on some shitty show complaining about your dirty laundry. It's a revenge show. And then his ex-wife calls him the runt of the litter. Like, is that really necessary to the painting of his behavior where he was manipulating women and, supposedly this big sex cult monster? You're going to say he's the runt of the litter? Really, bitch? You're going to pick out things that you know about his life that you learned from a relationship that you had with him. Information that you learned that's privileged information that only can be found out from being in a relationship with him, which you were grateful to have at the time, which you begged for at the time. And you thought it was cute when you found out, oh, he's the runt of the litter. That's so cute. And now she thinks it's terrible. Now she brings it up, throw it in his face in front of the world as if it's a weakness. Well, guess what? The runt of the litter ran you into the fucking ground, bitch. And you were an adult. You should have known better than the rest of them. And you weren't even half as smart as them. Some of them got out of it. You didn't. You had fucking kids with them, you dumb cunt. How does that grab you? Yeah, the R. Kelly's brother in jail in this show. I felt like they only had him in the show just so he could speak for everyone who's not in jail. He just goes, everybody has preferences. When he's talking about underage girls, it's just, I see why you ended up where you did. If you're 19 years old, I do not want to hear that you were preyed on. If you have stories about how your ex-boyfriend put his hand around your neck during sex, he wanted you to call him daddy, that's something that girls introduce for the most part. That's not something that a guy begs a girl to do. That's something that girls start. If you're a girl who doesn't do that, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about. If you're a girl who does do that, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you don't like the fact that I know that. If you're a guy that likes that, for the most part, you're not the one that introduces that. You just naturally gravitate towards women that like that. I simply don't believe that R. Kelly forced any of the girls to call him daddy. I think that they did that naturally. I think it's just a good plot line for this fake show for them to say that. It's such a common thing nowadays that I would not be surprised if they just completely made that up and said that he forced them to say that. It is scarily common nowadays with girls. Paid her $1,000 because he gave her mono. Very generous guy in a way. Generous. He shares not just his fluids, but he shares his money. You have to admire that. And women watch this show thinking that the whole point of the show is to shit on R. Kelly. You're missing the point. It's meant to be a warning against your own hopes. The women watching this show, many of them hoped one day that they could be with someone like R. Kelly. This show should be a warning against your own hopes that you have whenever you post on Instagram and you tag a celebrity, or whenever whenever a celebrity likes one of your photos and you get that little pathetic, giddy feeling and you just have to let everyone know that a celebrity liked your fucking post. Oh, look at you. Someone who a lot of people know looked at you and thought that you looked decent enough to click their finger on a screen twice. Look at you. You're so valuable. A famous person only cares about you for your looks. That was something we all needed to know that you find important about yourself. Thanks for letting us know that you revere that. The thing that speaks to the intelligence of all of these women on this show starts and ends with the fact that R. Kelly was illiterate the entire time, and they go around calling him a genius. They think he's the smartest man in the world. They submit to him entirely. They put their lives in his hands. And yet, most of them don't even know that he can't read. They can't even tell that he can't read. And they think of this guy like he's genius, like he's a god. And he can't read. What does that say about their mental capacity and the standard of their goals? He doesn't even know how to read. They only wanted money and attention. They overlook reality for all of their fantasies. They had a fantasy of being with R. Kelly, this famous, rich, powerful man, and that's all they wanted. They get there and they realize, this is fun and everything, it's fine, but he's, giving attention to other girls, and I don't like that. But then when it's gone, and he's not having sex with you anymore, the stuff that you endured for the sex that you didn't mind at the time because he was giving you attention, suddenly it makes them sick. And they think, oh, how could I have done that? And everything that they fucking said in this show, they go, it makes me sick what we were both doing. It makes me sick what we both did. How dare you do this? How dare you and I do this together? How dare you? How dare you and I do this? It's like they skip past the and I part. How dare you and I do this? And then this bitch who introduced her niece to R. Kelly after she knew what he was. She knew that he was like that. She introduced her niece to him. This fucking cunt says, I should have never introduced her to you. How dare you? Bitch. You're lucky the cameraman didn't get up and throw his fucking the little cardboard thing that they hold where they does the click and action. You're lucky he didn't chuck that thing at your fucking neck, you cunt. The irony in that statement alone. I should have never introduced her to you. How dare you? What you should be saying, bitch, is how dare I? And then this bitch, after watching, she claims she watched the R. Kelly sex tape, which is child porn. She admitted to watching child porn on this show. She goes, I was offended as a black woman. I mean, I was watching the show expecting her to tell me how she felt about that video in general. But to hear what she thought about that video as a black woman, it really gave me the insight that I needed. To hear her perspective coming from the scene of a black woman. She saw it from the point of view of a black woman. She was offended as a black woman. I just found that important, and I wanted to note that. Right, yeah. And then so towards the end of the series, they have, I think it was Torre that said this dumb shit. They go, if R. Kelly didn't have Trapped in the Closet, his career would have been over way earlier. And like just that statement alone, if he didn't have Trapped in the Closet, which was a big hit, if he didn't have Trapped in the Closet, his career would have been over way before. So essentially what you're saying is, oh gosh, if only he didn't have that successful endeavor, he wouldn't have been successful. Thank you so much for that genius media analysis. You're essentially saying if only he had failed, yeesh, why couldn't he have just not had that one success? And they pointed out as if it was a failure, but it was a success. He goes, if he didn't have Trapped in the Closet, his career would have been over way earlier than that. So basically, he's highlighting the fact that his career wasn't over by mentioning a huge success that R. Kelly had, and then saying his career would have been over. What do you mean his career would have been over? If he wasn't successful? Well, yeah. If his career wasn't successful, his career wouldn't be successful. So yeah, Torre, I guess you're right. When you break it down that way, that insightful, incredibly thoughtful way, you make it more clearer than it ever could have been. You added mathematics to the equation. You've made some sense of this whole thing. Torre, if there's one thing you're good at, it's making sense of this whole thing by saying something like, if only R. Kelly didn't have a hit song later in his career, then his career would have been over. Right. It would have been over. If only he didn't have that hit song that he had. It would have all been over if he was inactive. You know what? You're right, Torre. I just feel like it's important as a black woman for me to say that.